Here's a hot topic in golf: the Maxi League at Happy Gilmore. So if you didn't watch the movie, go watch it. I thought it was pretty funny. Let me know in the comments what you think. But the Maxi League, what they were doing was they were, chopping off the iliolumbar ligament. I think so. Golfers can get more rotation, create more speed, create more power. So funny concept. Actually, quite creative. But what I'm going to go over today is why we really need, our ligaments and we need our tendons, the soft tissues, as we call them, to help us swing the golf ball, to do our athletic movements, and to, really understand um, what we do here in the clinic and what you do in the gym and why it is important to, gain the proper movement, create more length in your swing, create more power. So, those are really the three things, you know, that people want in their golf swing. We'll say the top three are, power, length, consistency. Power, speed, length, consistency. So, if you have all three of those things, you're, a hell of a golfer. Consistency, we could also add in, obviously putting. We got to be able to putt, have a good visual system. But we will go over the visual system more, and I go over that with my clients as well. So yeah. So why we need tendon and ligament elasticity, or why it matters in golf and movement. So as I said, in Happy Gilmore, they cut off the iliolumbar ligament. So where that is located, you have your ilium here. It connects to all these little spots here. So the red's actually tendons, but the ligaments are going to be in between. Okay, all through there. So the ligaments actually create the stability in your spine. So it was factually right that you cut off the iliolumbar ligament, and it's going to create more length in your swing. But when you give up, certain amounts of, if you stretch too much, if you have something really loose, like the rubber band, I'll go ahead and get the rubber band real quick. You get this puppy loose, it loses its purpose. So your ligaments provide stability. So that's what we want, So you cut off the iliolumbar ligament, we cut this thing off, you're going to be walking around, like Gumby. You're going to be floating around in the wind, doing all sorts of silly shit. So yeah, and so loose ligament, unstable structure. So that's what we got to think about. So I'll show a shoulder here, not my shoulder. This is my shoulder be in trouble. Jokes are free. You can stay anytime. Hit that subscribe button while you're watching this, if you're still watching. So yeah, so here we have the not even your coracoid ligament. We'll call it that. Yeah. So your clavicular coracoid ligament. All right, so that's the coracoid process, attaches to the clavicle. So, when you separate your AC joint, by falling, that's when you're, everyone's like, oh, my shoulder clicks and pops. It's like, well, no shit, because this thing is lengthened. So I'd have to chop that off to get it off. But yeah, so you make these any looser. Here, we'll make it not even exist. This attaches to your bicep, by the way, so that's going to be a tendon. Okay. So every time contract a muscle, it goes there. Contract your bicep. All right, learning lesson. Everybody knows that. But so that's what we just got to realize. And then so your tendons, they act as springs. So when we're contracting the muscle, it's like this. And if I were to release it, create the power. Okay. All right. So you got to think in your golf swing, you create all this length, and when you're ready to contract the muscle, you contract it, and that's why all young players have so much speed. Their tendons are so elastic. They're very, very quick because they don't have tendon damage. They haven't developed the adhesions that some of us older people, I'm not going to call myself old, I'm only 30, but me versus somebody that's 65. The 65-year-old is going to have some traumas probably over the years. They're going to wear that tendon down, and just the longer it gets, the weaker it gets. It loses its elasticity. So this isn't the best example because this has good elasticity. I let go, and it shoots. So that's what we're looking for in our tendons. We want to make sure that our tendons are strong. When we contract, they're truly contracting, and when we're ready to release, say that 5 times fast, let's get ready to release, it's able to push out, release, contract, release, and get that tendon whip. So we'll call it tendon whipping. So the muscle contracts to create a rapid force, it acts as a spring. The more you coil it up, the more it's going to be able to explode. So if your tendons, if I had a knife, I'd chop it off, but if the fibers are not all connected, you hear partial tears, grade 1, 2, 3, 0 to 25%, 25 to 50, 50 to 100. So your tendons respond to lengthening and then contracting. So like I said, the rubber band. So just anytime you're in the gym, we're creating this coil. We're coiling, and we're building up energy. So that's why we want to create length in the swing, and then releasing it by all the chain reactions, all the kinematic sequences to create a coiling type pattern, storing up energy and exploding through the ball. So anytime you're exercising or you look through my channel, you will see a lot of these exercises are weight shifting, making sure we're disassociating the hips and the shoulders, so that way we can build up power and then create speed with the length, because it's going to be harder to create speed if your backswing's here versus way out here. Like you look at somebody like Rory, Tiger, they all have so much length in their swing, so much. So what happens when you get loose tendons? That's what we're talking about, the tears. You're not going to be able to contract. Weak contractions, weak muscles. So your muscle could not be weak. It could be the tendon is not fully attached and not getting the neurological firing pattern, because you got to think there's synapses, there's attachments of the nerve to the muscle. So to the tendon. So if it's not innervated, if it's not able to do what it wants to do, then it's not going to contract. You're not going to get that firing force. So that's all. I wanted to hop on here and go over this TED Talk while the topic's hot with the Maxi League. But let me know in the comments what you think, and just remember, we're trying to create length, build up the power, and then have the consistency. But if you have stable ligaments, okay, that keep your structures, keep your spine, if you tear your MCL, or your ACL, that's why your knee is all jumbly, because the range of motion is way past. You can still usually contract your muscles, but you have a lot of receptors that tell your body that hurts and it's unstable and not doing what it needs to do. So remember that when you're working in the gym, to create power and speed, and you have more length. So stretching is important, but if you have too much, not enough elastic activity, then it's just going to be not strong enough. So stable ligaments, elastic tendons that create the contracting, and the tendon whip will be our best bet. So let me know what you think. Subscribe.